meeting will now come to order. Welcome to the December 3rd, 2020 meeting of the City of Raleigh Appearance Commission. My name is Corey Bates and I am chair of the commission. The Raleigh Appearance Commission is a public body appointed by the City Council that exercises both advisory and quasi-judicial functions. The Appearance Commission's responsibilities relate to zoning and other land use matters, as well as the visual quality and aesthetic characteristics of the city. We will consider the items on today's agenda in order in which they appear on the agenda. The first two items today on today's agenda are requests for design alternates for the City of Raleigh's Unified Development Ordinance. When hearing requests for the design alternates, the Appearance Commission sits as a quasi-judicial body and conducts a quasi-judicial evidentiary hearing on the requests. The process for the hearing quasi-judicial request is governed by the state law and the city's UDO. I'm going to turn it over to our attorney to explain the process for the hearing of these items and to conduct the evidentiary hearing on today's design alternate requests.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Catherine Hill, and I'm the attorney for the Raleigh Appearance Commission. So as the chair stated, the Appearance Commission will now conduct quasi-judicial evidentiary hearings on requests for design alternates from the UDO. Under the UDO, design alternate requests are heard again by the Appearance Commission sitting as a quasi-judicial body. When sitting as a quasi-judicial body, the Appearance Commission acts as a type of court and assures that the due process rights of the parties are protected. Since today's meeting will be remote, in addition to the general quasi-judicial rules, today's hearings are going to be conducted in accordance with state statutes that allow for remote quasi-judicial evidentiary hearings during the current COVID-19 states of emergency. I'll go ahead and quickly summarize the quasi-judicial procedures and requirements before we start. Individuals who sign up to speak, as well as city staff participants, have already signed a written oath form, and their oath will be reaffirmed on the record as they testify today. The participants have also already provided written consent to today's remote meeting. We'll begin with the staff presentation and report. A staff member from the Urban Design Center will introduce the request. Since design alternates are transportation related in nature, a staff member from the Transportation Department will also provide some background information. As a reminder to the Commission, the standards that the applicant must meet for a design alternate approval are in the UDO. They are also set forth in the staff report and the applicant's application. The standard will be discussed by staff and the applicant throughout the hearing, and the burden is on the applicant to provide competent material and substantial evidence as to each of the required standards in order to be granted the design alternate request. Following staff's presentation, the applicant will be acknowledged to present their case and witnesses, and the Appearance Commission will acknowledge the attorney or applicant for the case first as the point person for the application. Following the applicant, any opponents will be given an opportunity to speak, followed by any rebuttal and closing statements by the applicant. When all testimony is complete, we will close the evidentiary hearing. The commission members will deliberate and vote. Following the meeting, the commission's decision will be prepared with written findings of fact and conclusions of law, and that decision will be incorporated into the meeting minutes, which will be adopted at the same time. The decision will be adopted at the same time the minutes are adopted. So with that background, we can go ahead and start with the first evidentiary hearing, 1428 Gavin Street. The property owner is Lot 1428 LLC. This is design alternate case DA2-2020. We'll go ahead and start by swearing in the staff participants, as well as the participants for the case. So Lee Stevens, an urban designer, is the staff presenter. If Lee, can you please state your name for the record, and the chair will read the oath to you.
Lee Stevens.
Lee, do you swear and affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Bradley Kimbrell.
Here. Bradley, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And Kevin Kidd.
Yes.
Kevin, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, and I should have noted that Bradley and Kevin are with the Transportation Department. All right, so the attorney for this case is Michael Birch. He does not need to be sworn in. There's two witnesses. We have Jerry Stifelman. Jerry, if you could please state both your name and your address for the record.
Yeah, Jerry Stifelman at 607 Glasscock Street, Raleigh, 27604.
Thank you, Jerry. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have Kimberly Wicker. Ms. Wicker, if you could also state your address.
Kimberly Wicker, my address is 300 Parham Street, Raleigh, 27601.
Thank you, Kimberly. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, Lee Stevens is the urban designer who is going to be presenting the staff report. So Lee, you can go ahead and start.
Great. Thank you, Catherine. This is for 1428 Gavin Street, and this is a request for section 8.3.5D of the UDO, which deals with cross-access. And this request is for the construction of a general building that will be for animal service and office uses on a 0.24 acre site. And the applicant states that the intent of the required cross-access is met through the relocation of a shared driveway with the lot to the east. The applicant states that the size of the lot is too small to provide cross-access per UDO standards without impacting the developable portion of the site. So this site is zoned IX3. Great, thank you, Carter. And now, if there are any questions regarding this case, we have transportation staff here, Kevin and Bradley, that will be happy to answer any questions, or myself. I'll turn it over to them.
Great. Let me ask you real quick, the commission members, if you have any questions for Lee before we talk to transportation. Okay, if there's no questions, then I will, Bradley Kimbrell, and then Bradley was with Kevin Cade. Bradley, if you need to call on Kevin as well, but we'll address you, we'll recognize you first.
Sure, thank you. With Gavin Street, I'll take the lead on this from a transportation standpoint. No formal presentation prepared, just available for any questions that you may have at any point in the hearing.
Okay, does anybody in the commission have questions for Bradley before you hear from the applicant? Okay, Michael Birch is the applicant for this case. So as a reminder, Mr. Birch, you know, your application exhibits were provided ahead of the meeting, but please make sure to omit whatever you need to into the record.
Wonderful. Thank you all again, Michael Birch with Lonely Flaw Partners here on behalf of the applicant. And you've already, again, heard from Mr. Stifelman as well as our registered landscape architect, Kimberly Wicker. I would ask, Mr. Chair, that all our application, the staff report, and staff presentation be entered into the record. And then just as some initial background before I turn it over to Kimberly, I just want to note that this same request was made to the Board of Adjustment in February of this year. It was case A-178-19. At that time, the site plan was providing a couple of residential units instead of the office that's now planned in addition to the animal service. And it was the same request for a design adjustment to the cross-access requirement to the west. And they reviewed the request with the same findings of fact that are before you. And I'll just note that the Board of Adjustment unanimously approved that design alternate. Now, when the owner came back in and substituted office in place of residential, the city required a new site plan, which triggered the need for a new design adjustment or design alternate now from you all. So that's kind of why we're here, even though we've gone through this process already for this property. And again, we'll just note that they unanimously approved it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly Wicker to provide some testimony regarding the request and the findings of fact, and then I'll just come back on briefly to conclude. So, thank you. And Kimberly, if you're able to jump on and.
Okay, yeah, am I on? I don't know if I'm unmuted.
You're good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Michael, for the introduction and the background. That's very helpful, I'm sure, for the Appearance Commission. And as Michael stated, this was a case that was already heard through the Board of Adjustment earlier this year. And we are submitting for basically what's a brand new ASR because the use of the building changed. So the site plan is identical. And our request for this design alternate from the cross-access requirement of the UDO is identical as well. So I will go through the findings for this design alternate. And the first one, does the request for relief of cross-access meet the intent of the requirement? And we are saying, yes, it does meet the intent. The lot to the east, as was already described, has a shared driveway with a recorded access easement. So there is shared access provided to the lot to the east. And then this lot is a little bit unique because Gavin Street, which is the street to the south, makes a right angle turn, as you can see on this site plan, and heads north. So that lot to the west has access both to the west as well as the south. And then finding number 2, it does not increase congestion or compromise safety. And again, I would say some of the similar responses as far as the first finding is that the subject lot does provide access to the east, and then it has, a corner lot essentially as its adjacent lot that it can provide cross-access both to the west and to the south. And both of the lots are under 12,000 square feet in size. Finding number 3, it doesn't conflict with an approved or built roadway construction project in the vicinity. And there are currently no conflicts with this site or with any approved or built roadway construction project in the vicinity. And then for finding number 4, the design alternate is deemed reasonable due to one or more of the following. I would say both the first and second, and then the fourth are very easy to comply with. Given the physical environment, compliance is not physically feasible. As was stated, this is a small lot. Providing additional cross-access to the west would really put an undue burden on the site physically. And then compliance would not meaningfully improve connectivity. I believe we meet this one as well. Since we are providing cross-access to the east, that site to the west, as I've stated a couple of times, it functions as a corner lot, so they would potentially have access to the south and the west. And then the burden of compliance is not reasonable in light of the size of the site or intensity of the development. And the subject lot is less than 12,000 square feet, and providing cross-access to the adjacent lot to the west would place an undue burden on the site development potential for the lot. So those are our responses to the findings. If there are any questions or if you need clarification on anything, I would be happy to answer.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly. Again, this is Michael. She did a great job of kind of covering the findings. And so we'll just leave it at that. Again, myself, Kimberly, and Jerry are here if the commission has any questions. Thanks.
Okay. Did the commissioners have any question for Mr. Birch or any of their witnesses? Okay, if there's no questions, then there's nobody else signed up to speak in support or opposition of this case. So I would just ask staff one more time, Lee and Bradley, if you have anything that you want to add.
This is Bradley. No, I do not.
And this is Lee. I also don't have anything further to add.
Okay, so last call for any questions from anybody before we close the evidentiary hearing. Okay, if there's no questions, then you can close the hearing and the commission members can deliberate and vote when you're ready.
Thank you, Catherine. So we'll close that. And any comments from the commission? I'll just open it up and say, I think it seems pretty straightforward to me. I think with the adjacency to the corner lot, the shared access that they're already providing, the characteristics of the unique lot, and just the location, size of lot, and the evidence provided, I think it meets the intent. I don't see any issues with moving this forward, letting this go through.
Corey, hey, Jamie Ferguson, I agree. Very restricted lot, access is there. I support what they've done, and I agree with this project.
Thank you, Jamie.
Same here. This is Candace.
Thank you, Candace. Any other comments, feedback from commission? If not, I ask for a motion.
Motion to approve.
I second that.
Is that Adam?
Yeah, that's Adam.
Okay, so we have a motion, Jamie, a second with Adam. Any other further discussion? If not, I will ask for, how about Ralph, Deputy City Clerk, could we have you do a roll call vote?
Absolutely. I always call it in the order of the person who made the motion, and then the person who seconded it, and then we go on from there.
Thank you.
So Ms. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Bates,
Yes.
Mr. Levitas,
Yes.
Ms. Andre,
Yes.
Ms. Eberly,
Yes.
Mr. Dodge. Nod your head or say yes, please. There you go.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I was on mute.
Thank you. Let's see, Mr. Mason,
Yes.
thank you. Ms. Beach,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Roberts,
Yes.
thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. That moves that. Catherine, would you like to continue with hearing number 2?
Sure. So your second hearing, the address is 1200 and 1198 Parton Road, 901, 1001, 1005, and 1009 Freedom Drive, and 4524, 4702, 4704, and 4710 New Bern Avenue. The property owner is Freedom Industrial Park LLC, and this is design alternate case DA3 2020. Before we start the hearing on this case, it's my understanding that the Appearance Commission heard a design adjustment for this case a couple weeks ago, perhaps, related to the same project. I'm going to just, if we could do a quick exercise for the record. The conflict of interest standard says that it's not impermissible to have ex parte, so outside of this quasi-judicial hearing, communication, especially you had communication that was unrelated to the request that's at hand. But it does say that everybody has to be a fair and impartial decision maker. And based on what my understanding is that everyone here today, except for Commission Member Mason, heard the admin alternate. So just for the record, I'd like to kind of do a quick conflict confirmation and just ask each commission member, except for Mr. Mason, to state for the record that you can be a fair and impartial decision maker. And I'm also going to ask the applicant to make sure that they consent to everybody hearing the case. So I think this would be helpful just to have on the record in case there are any questions. So Mr. Clerk, do you want to call everybody's names really quickly and just make sure? The question is, can you be a fair and impartial decision maker in hearing this case? And if you could just state yes or no on the record, that would be great.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, on the question of, can you be a fair and impartial participant on the matter? Starting with Ms. Ferguson.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Mr. Bates.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Levitas.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Andre.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Everly.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Walters.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Dodge.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Mason.
Yes.
I don't think Mr. Mason heard. Oh, wait, that's good to know too, though. Anyway.
Thank you. Ms. Beach.
Yes.
And Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And I'd also ask if you can unmute Jamie Schwedler to ask whether the applicant has any objections to any commission member hearing the case today.
Good afternoon, Jamie Schwedler with Parker Poe. No, we do not.
Great. Thank you. Okay, with that, Mr. Chair, we can go ahead and start by swearing everybody in for this one. Bradley Kimbrell is your transportation reviewer. He doesn't need to be sworn in again. Carter Pettibone has not been sworn in yet. He's your senior urban designer. So Carter, go ahead and state your name and the chair can swear you in.
Carter Pettibone.
Thank you. Carter, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Great. And then Ms. Schwedler is the attorney. She does not need to be sworn in. And you have 3 additional witnesses signed up. The first is Justin Parker. Mr. Parker, if you could state your address for the record, please.
Yes, 4509 Creedmoor Road, Suite 201, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27612.
Thank you. Mr. Parker, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Travis Fluitt.
Good evening, Travis Fluitt, 421 Fayetteville Street, Suite 600, Raleigh 27601.
Thank you. Mr. Fluitt, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And then you have Corey Howell.
Yes, good afternoon. My address is 421 Fayetteville Street, Suite 600, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27601.
Thank you. Mr. Howell, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you will provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Great. So Carter Pettibone is the urban designer who can give you start with the staff presentation.
Sorry, I'm unmuted. The applicant is requesting several requests. The first, a 20,320 design alternate for a 4,000 foot maximum block perimeter requirement set forth in section 8.3.2.a of the UDO that results in a block perimeter of 24,320 feet. A design alternate for relief from the cross-access requirements of section 8.3.5D of the UDO between the site and its neighbors to the south and to the west. A design alternate from relief from the stub street requirement of UDO section 8.3.4C to extend Parton Road Stub Street south along the western boundary of the subject property. And a design alternate for relief from the following roadway and streetscape requirements for the northern portion of Freedom Drive. An avenue 2-lane divided street set forth in section 8.4.5B. 1, 7-foot design adjustment to the maximum back of curb width of 48 feet. 2, 2.5-foot design adjustment to the minimum planting area width of 6 foot. And 3, a 1-foot design adjustment to the minimum sidewalk width of 6 feet and relief from the following streetscape improvements for the southern portion of Freedom Drive. Industrial street set forth in section 8.4.7.a. 1, a 2.5-foot design adjustment to the minimum planting area, implement planting width requirement of 6 feet in order to construct a general building for warehouse and distribution and light industrial uses on a 27.84 acre property zone IX3 and IX3 conditional use. Location here, and then the zoning map with IX3 conditional use. I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it over to transportation.
Carter, can you clarify again the street section? You're saying that is to the north, is that correct?
To the north, the relief 7-foot design adjustment to the minimum back and curb to back and curb width of 48 feet. 2.5-foot design adjustment to the minimum planting area width of 6 feet. And number 3, a 1-foot design adjustment to the minimum sidewalk width of 6 feet for the northern portion.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from Carter before you hear from transportation? Okay, Bradley, is Kevin handling this one?
I'll be taking this one, Catherine.
Okay, great. This is Kevin Kidd with transportation. Kevin, anything that you want to add? Go for it.
No presentation prepared, but if any questions come up anytime during the presentation, I'll be glad to answer any code-based questions at any point during the presentation.
Okay. If there's not any questions for Mr. Kidd, then you can move on to the applicant's case. Jamie Swedler is the attorney, so we'll go ahead and acknowledge Ms. Swedler. And again, as a reminder, you provided all of your documents ahead of time, but please submit anything into the record as needed.
Thank you, Ms. Hill, and good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. I'm Jamie Schradler at 301 Fayetteville Street, here on behalf of the applicant and property owner, Freedom Industrial Park, LLC. At this time, I'd like to ask that our application, presentation, the case report, and all supporting materials be accepted into the record.
Thank you. Will do.
Thank you. We do have several witnesses, Mr. Corey Howell and Mr. Travis Fluid, that you heard sworn in. They're both with the firm of Kimley Horn and can help answer some technical questions as we go along. Mr. Parker is here on behalf of the property owner and will be available for questions. Because our requests overlap substantially, we've prepared our presentation to go through all 4 design alternate requests and then make the witnesses available at the end of the request if that's okay with the chair.
That is fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, please. As Mr. Pettibone explained, this request is for 4 design alternates that were related to an industrial development project on New Hope Road. The block perimeter adjustment, the relief from cross-access easement requirements, relief from stub street requirements to extend Parton Road to the south, and to adjust the roadway and streetscape requirements on Freedom Drive to tie into existing street sections. Ironically, this case is in a similar posture to the one you heard earlier in that requests 1, 2, and 4 were granted by the Board of Adjustment as design, I believe, alternates on a prior site plan in December of last year and in July of 2020, based on the same criteria that you'll be called on to evaluate today. These decisions were included in the submitted materials in your packet for reference. But since that time, a new tenant has approached us, and this resulted in some site plan changes that required us to go back through the request process, much like the case before. But like the Board of Adjustment found prior, these design alternates are justified under the UDO standards and will present evidence on each. I'd like to note, just to avoid confusion, that the 3rd request related to the stub street did not apply at the time that this case went through before, and so that's why only 3 of the 4 requests were considered. But nevertheless, we'll present competent material and substantial evidence on each. Next slide, please. The project is 28 acres compiled across 10 parcels highlighted in yellow there. Next slide, please. The first request we'll go through is for relief from block perimeter. To walk through these requests, I'd like to call Mr. Corey Howell to testify.
My name is Corey Howell, and I am a licensed professional engineer in the state of North Carolina. My address, as was mentioned earlier, 421 Fayetteville Street, Suite 600, Raleigh. I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and over 15 years of experience in land development design.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Have you reviewed the proposed site and plan for its compliance with the requirements for a design alternate?
Yes, I have. My firm designed the plans. I was a part of that design and have also reviewed the plans.
Thank you. Can you explain the block perimeter request?
Yeah, the design adjustment from the maximum block perimeter of 4,000 feet is necessary on this site due to the existing block, which is already extremely large at approximately 25,480 linear feet, which is shown in red on the exhibit there in front of you. The proposed block perimeter, which is outlined in blue, is 24,320 linear feet. And the block is so large that no public streets through the site will meaningfully improve the connectivity in the immediate area.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Next slide, please.
So a couple other points here. The use and the surrounding properties also make, public street grid fairly difficult to achieve, since the proposed use is an industrial and warehouse facility, as you can see here on the site plan. As you can see, the facility will have one large, long, rectangular oriented building in a north-south direction with a truck delivery court on the western side and employee parking on the southern and eastern sides. And the nature of the industrial use is, large buildings capable of, flexible space for a variety of uses inside that require truck access and turnarounds, in a way that typically conflicts with a tight road grid. As part of this project, one thing we do want to point out is that we are completing the Bullock Farm Road extension, which is shown in blue along the north side of the site. That's over 1,100 feet of new road that will be extended to connect Parton Road on the west to Freedom Drive on the east. A couple other things to point out here. On the west side of the screen, the left side, the property is bound by an existing development that really makes additional roads impractical. The lots that you can see along the western side of the property, the majority of them all have existing buildings on them that front along New Hope Road, which is just on the other side of those buildings there. Even if we were able to make some kind of mid-block connection there, there's really nowhere for a road to connect on the east side of Freedom Drive due to the TCA areas, which are cross-hatched there along the eastern and far southern part of the site. So really not a meaningful improvement to connectivity if we were able to make that.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Next slide, please. Oh, so we'll move into the next request for the cross-access relief. This request is for the relief from cross-access easement requirements between the proposed industrial site and the parcels to the south and west, shown on the screen with red stars. The yellow on the screen denotes the areas where we're seeking relief from cross-access easements. And the green areas show all of the opportunities for cross-access in other directions that we are providing. Mr. Howell, can you explain to the board why cross-access is problematic in the areas shown in yellow?
Yes. So the parcel to the south is occupied by Mobile Home Park. And this property actually has an existing recorded access easement to Freedom Drive that is shown in blue. And if you wouldn't mind to advance the slide, we can show that easement in a little bit closer detail there. Yeah, thank you. So as was mentioned, there is an existing cross-access easement to the south that will remain in place to provide connectivity along the shared property line. The next slide, please. And so this parcel is the parcel to the west of us that I mentioned earlier, is similar to the parcels to the north and south, have frontage on New Hope Road. and obviously has direct access there. And so, lack of additional cross access through our industrial site will not increase congestion or meaningfully reduce connectivity. And, lastly, I think on this, requiring these cross access easements would not be compatible with the adjacent uses.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. As shown on the screen there, to the west, the property is noted as owned by Bradco Supply Corporation. Are you aware of their activities of industrial use and storage as shown on that aerial?
Yes.
Would that also make the property inconsistent for cross-access use?
Yes.
Thank you. I believe we can advance to the next slide. Mr. Howell, can you explain to the board what this slide conveys?
Yeah, so a couple things here. Just this slide shows that the existing tree conservation areas that are required, which are hatched in green, and the other, these are the only viable TCA areas that are shown, which are along the eastern and southern edges of the property. So, having additional road connections to the east would be difficult. One other thing that we want to point out, and it's shown there in orange, there is an existing zoning condition that requires screening of the mobile home park, which is located to the south. So that was a requirement for this project when the property was rezoned, and so in effect we're trying to honor City Council's request to provide additional planting that's in this area shaded in orange, in addition to the tree conservation areas that are hatched in green, instead of a connection or an additional roadway here. That was something that was really important to council, and they were very concerned about buffering and separating, the proposed industrial development from the existing mobile home park, as long as it's used as a mobile home park.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. I think we can move on to the next request, design alternate number 3. This is for relief from the stub street requirement to extend Parton Road south, shown in green on the screen. Mr. Howell, can you explain this request to the board?
Yeah, so with this request, compliance here is not physically feasible because the subject property, as we've discussed earlier, abuts multiple developed parcels to the west, where the western half of the Parton Stub Street extension would theoretically be located. And these parcels to the west, as we've reviewed, have existing buildings, and some of those buildings are very close to the property line, as you can see in this figure here, therefore they would not be able to dedicate right of way to build the other half of that stub street without demolishing buildings that are there.
Thank you. And does that same justification support the first request for the extension of block perimeter, and that those difficulties would exist in extending Parton Road for purposes of connectivity south?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So our final request is request number 4, which shows the street adjustments, which has 2 different parts. Mr. Howell, will you please walk the board through those 2 parts of what the request entails?
Yeah, the northern portion of the request, which is the area that's shown in orange there on the screen, that's a couple different things. It's a 7-foot adjustment to the road width, a 2.5-foot adjustment to the planting area, and then a 1-foot adjustment to the sidewalk width. The southern portion there, which is shown in purple, is a 2.5-foot adjustment to the planting area. And these requests came up in coordination with staff during the design process and the review process, really to bring the street section in line with the existing areas of Freedom Drive to the north and to the south, that allows us to tie this in smoothly, just with the existing conditions there adjacent to the site.
Great, thank you. Mr. Howell, based on your experience reviewing the plans, can you confirm that they were designed and certified by a professional engineer?
Yes, the plans were designed and certified by a professional engineer on our staff.
Thank you. And based on your experience, will the design adjustment or design alternate adversely impact stormwater collection and conveyance?
No, none of these design adjustments will adversely impact stormwater.
Thank you. I'd like to call our second witness and then make both witnesses available for questions before the board. If we could hear from Mr. Travis Fluitt.
Good evening. Travis Fluitt with Kinley Horn
Evening, Mr.
Associates. 421 Fayetteville Street, Suite 600, 27601.
Thank you, Mr. Fluitt. Could you give us a brief description of your education and experience?
Yes, I have a master's degree in transportation engineering from the University of Texas at Austin, and I have been a practicing transportation engineer with Kinley Horn Associates for 16 years, and I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Fluitt. I'd like to tender both Mr. Fluitt and Mr. Howell as expert witnesses in their fields.
Mr. Chair, that's directed for you, I think.
Yes. Yeah, so moved. Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, was there a question?
No, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Fluitt, have you reviewed the proposed site and plan for its compliance with the requirements for a design alternate?
Yes, my firm designed the plans and I have reviewed them.
Thank you. And in your opinion, would any of the four requests significantly increase congestion or compromise safety?
No, they would not.
Would any of the requests conflict with an approved or built roadway construction project adjacent to or in the vicinity of the site?
No, there are no such projects in the area. The extension of Bullock Farm Road, which we are providing, is the only proposed street connection or improvement on the city's street plan. And therefore, the plan will give properties on Freedom Drive an alternate way in and out other than just out to New Bern Avenue.
Great. And that's in addition to what's there today, correct?
That is correct.
With respect to the fourth request, does the street section create additional maintenance responsibilities for the city?
No, it does not.
Thank you, Mr. Fluitt. I'd like to briefly summarize the evidence and tie it back into the findings for the board, and then again, make all of us available for any questions from the board. Next slide, please. As you heard today, the block perimeter findings are met in that the connectivity meets the intent of sections 8.3.2, 8.3.4, and 8.3.5, in that we are providing connectivity to the extent that's appropriate with the context of the site by extending Bullock Farm Road to Freedom Drive, but the overall size of the block makes it difficult to meaningfully improve connectivity in a substantial way. Second, as Mr. Fluitt just testified, the design alternate does not increase congestion or compromise safety because the Bullock Farm Road extension actually improves traffic circulation in the immediate area and provides an additional means of access that's not there today. C, it does not conflict with an approved or built roadway construction based on Mr. Fluitt's testimony. And that D, the block perimeter adjustment is reasonable due to the presence of the existing physical environment of the buildings to our west, and the tree conservation areas and combination of the zoning conditions that dictate the layout of the site. Compliance is not physically feasible, and that extending those additional roads would not be compatible with adjacent uses. Next slide, please. As to the second request, the cross-access findings, you heard testimony that this meets intent of the relevant UDO sections because the cross-access is meant to provide connectivity between sites where appropriate. This request, if tied to the south and west, would create a kind of a different different use that wouldn't be compatible between the proposed industrial site and the residential to the south, or the parking and storage as we saw on the western site. As Mr. Fluitt testified, again, it does not increase congestion or compromise safety or conflict with the approved roadway in the vicinity. And it is reasonable due to the existing environmental conditions that we covered. Again, for similar reasons, it would not meaningfully improve connectivity because the parcels to the west have a direct connection to Newbern Road, and it'd be difficult, and the parcels, to the south have the existing cross-access easement on Pony Chase Lane that is to remain, giving those residents of the mobile home park a direct connection out to Freedom Drive that's more direct than through our site. And again, compliance is not compatible with adjacent uses because we have an industrial facility that will be using truck turnarounds, and it's not ideal to mix that vehicular traffic with the other residential traffic in the area. Next slide, please. We've also met the sub-street findings in request number 3 because the overall intent of this section is to extend connectivity where possible, but here the Parton Street extension would conflict with those existing buildings to our west, as Mr. Howell testified. Again, we have the testimony that it won't increase congestion or compromise safety or conflict with a built construction project. And here it's reasonable because of the physical environment of those buildings. Compliance is not physically feasible and would not meaningfully improve connectivity because we've done that as best we could with the Bullock Farm Road extension. Next slide, please. And finally, with the 4th design alternate, we meet the criteria for the change in the street connections because, again, we've met the findings of congestion, and you heard from expert testimony that we do not create additional maintenance responsibilities for the city. The plans have been designed and certified by a professional engineer, will not adversely impact stormwater collection and conveyance, and is reasonable due to the existing physical environment of trying to tie in the street sections both to the north and the south with the existing sections that are there today, and providing a reasonable transition from the different street section. Because we believe we've met our burden in providing competent material and substantial evidence in support of each of the elements of each of the 4 requests, we'd request that the design alternates be approved today, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have on this matter.
Okay, do any commission members have any question for the applicant or any of their witnesses? You can go ahead and ask if staff has anything additional to add as well, or any questions for staff.
Nothing to add.
I have nothing to add other than I'm here for any questions.
Okay.
Hey, this is Chris Roberts. I do have a question for staff. So the applicant said that they had worked with staff on the street sections findings portion as far as tying into the existing conditions. And there wasn't a lot of detail about what those existing conditions are, and that it actually does align with the tying in and matching up with what's already there. So I guess my question is, did any of the staff that's on this call work on this project, and do they agree with what was presented in the findings here?
Mr. Roberts, I can take that question. I was the reviewer of record on this project, both this site plan and the one that preceded it. And what we have here at Freedom Drive, we have 2 different street types that an intersection is created with a new Bullock Farm Road. So you have an Avenue 2-lane divided section to the top, which would be a 76-foot right-of-way on the comp plan. And to the south of that, we have an industrial street type. And thank you for the exhibit. So where you see in purple, that would be a 69-foot right-of-way at full build-out. And we have a 76 just above it on Bullock Farm would be the ultimate build-out. And we had a city project that had come through there, had done some sidewalk work, and what was discussed was more of an observation of if you shift the curb one way or the other, it creates a bit of an offset, and then similar with sidewalks. So that was kind of the discussion, and the developer presented this that you see today for your look at it.
Okay.
That
So
answer what
in your opinion, it does line up with the conditions on either side.
And moving with this, it keeps an aligned curb where
Okay.
pedestrian access is much easier, just from a pure visibility access of it. So it is atypical to have an Avenue 2-lane divided where it would run into an industrial street. So it was really, the reason it was set up that way largely was likely because of Bullock Farm Road is also on the comp plan. So there's a recognition of that intersection that was coming through.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, there's nobody else signed up to speak in support or opposition, so I guess I should, since Mr. Kidd was able to answer a question. Jamie, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I believe that's consistent with our understanding, but we're happy to answer any other questions that come up.
Okay, if the commission members don't have any more questions and there's nobody else signed up to speak, then Mr. Chair, you can go ahead and close the evidentiary hearing and the commission members can deliberate and vote.
Okay, I'll close the evidentiary hearing. Thank you, Jamie and company, for that presentation. Any comments right off from the commission?
This is Chris. I think it was very clearly presented, and I don't see any reason why not to approve any one of these requests.
Thank you,
This is
Chris.
William. This is William. I would agree with Chris, especially since staff confirmed that they agree with the findings too as well.
Thank you, William. Any other feedback, comments? I tend to agree with both your comments, William and Chris. I think with the prior approvals with 1, 2, and 4, and discussion of really no change to what has been presented before, with the testimony provided from the attorney and the findings outlined in the presentation, I think it's pretty clear, and I think it's worth moving forward as presented. Any other comments? If not, I'll move to approve with the presentation as outlined. And
Are
the
we doing
findings
all
as.
4 at once?
Yeah, so that was a question I had for our attorney, Catherine. My understanding is that it all goes as one vote. Is that correct?
You can vote on them separately, but if your motion is to approve all 4 of them, you can make a motion to with them all consolidated. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So my understanding was single, but if people would like to separate them out, I think that'd be fine. My motion would be to approve all 4 as stated in the presentation and provided.
Corey, I think that do we need to review the findings like we do?
Well, I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Was the question if you needed to review the findings? You absolutely can go through them all as part of your deliberations if you want to. It's up to you guys how you would like to deliberate.
I'm happy to go through the findings. I believe that the attorneys went through the findings well, is my opinion. And so I'm happy to go through them, but quickly, the block perimeter, completing the Bullock Farm Road, I think, goes a long way towards that. The constraints of the adjacent neighboring properties. So I think, I think those kind of helped settle in my mind the cross access with the existing recorded access easement to the south. And, the access there, the type of service is not, is not necessarily compatible with the uses on the to the west, where they're shown on the west. The Stub Street, we've been through that a couple times. If there's any more comment with those, again, I think I would motion that with all four that they be approved as presented.
I'll second that. It's Chris.
Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. If not, I would ask that we do a roll call vote. And can we go ahead and do that the same way?
Thank you. One answer will cover all four. Chairman Bates?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Ferguson?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Levitas? Mr. Levitas?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Andre?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Everly?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Walters?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Dodge?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Mason?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Beach?
Yes.
Thank you. That makes 10. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Chair, it's your meeting. Back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Appreciate it. With that, I will close the business portion of our meeting, and we will continue with our working group reports. So how about Sir Walter Raleigh Awards? Lee, would you like to?
I think she left. She had a babysitting assignment tonight, so for relatives. So I gave her the time off after. Just to give you a quick update, I believe Lee has established a deadline of tomorrow to receive kind of videos from the winners to integrate into the video. And I think she's working with the separate commission members on their presentations and trying to get that all together to get to RTN to do the video editing. Our goal, I think we're looking at the 16th, but I think we need to be a little more flexible with that, just because of timing and production. And we had the mayor do some comments, and she has her staff edit her comments. So we're shooting for the 16th, but it might be a little further. But we'll have some more, be able to give an update, I think, via email in probably next week.
Thank you for that, Carter. And there is a lot of work that goes into it, and I appreciate you and your staff putting all this together. It's quite the undertaking, especially virtually. So great job with that.
Here.
Other business, do we have anything else to report? Candace, do you have anything with high impact, high visibility?
Yeah, so I don't know how much everybody knows about this. We did have our first meeting the week before Thanksgiving, a small group of us. And I think the biggest thing that we're trying to wrap our head around is with the shift to a quasi-judicial format, that complicates us looking at any type of design reviews on any development prior to that. So we're trying to work through that. There's several options that staff has given us. Probably the closest option to what we think the commission wants to do is done by the Raleigh Historic District Commission, where they kind of have a part of the commission that does the quasi-judicial piece, and then another group that looks at design reviews, kind of courtesy design reviews. So there's different ways we can do it, but the way that they do it is it's almost like an alums of the commission that does the overall courtesy design reviews. And we just have to make sure that, you know, it's written in our bylaws that those two groups, you know, don't discuss things with each other or anything like that. So it honestly was a little more complicated than I thought, just because of the quasi-judicial change. I think that we can still do it. We are not going to call it high impact, high visibility. It may just be some sort of, you know, courtesy design review. So our meeting was primarily wrapping our heads around that challenge that we have. So we didn't even get into, you know, how we would put it into the process for site plan applications or anything. So we are going to meet every other Friday. So if anybody's interested, please reach out. But that's where we stand with that. Carter, I don't know if you want to add anything regarding that discussion. I know you weren't there, but from a staff perspective.
Sure, and my apologies for not placing it on as an agenda item, but I think you summed it up pretty well. Staff has met kind of internally to talk about that, and you know we brought those kind of issues up, or Charles and Lee did at the meeting, and we're looking for other dates to do the committee. We're willing to do it kind of as a committee and advertise those meetings and set up with RTN. So we'll need to kind of think a little bit more and find those dates that work. Because we do need to advertise them publicly. But I think we're going to need to do a little more discussion among staff, especially with the city attorney's office. You know, we did reach out to the RHTC and kind of got their perspective on it. So, and Candace mentioned there were some other options, and those kind of tie in to what the council kind of gave you as an assignment when you did your annual report and work plan presentation back in March. That can kind of morph into the discussion as well. So, you know, I think we're going to figure out some dates tomorrow when we meet, and more coming on that.
Great. Thank you, Candace and Carter, on that. Again, I think it's an important thing. It is tricky, so I appreciate you hanging in there and seeing how we can best serve the city with our talents in that direction and continue that. Are there other comments from the commission? Any other items that we need to discuss on the agenda tonight, or that aren't necessarily on the agenda that we can discuss?
So this is William. This is a super stupid question, but for whatever reason, I cannot seem to find Sir Walter date on my calendar. Can somebody remind me of that exact date?
So I think that is what we were just saying is we were shooting for the 16th, right? And it may push back a little bit, but there'll be more to come on that.
I don't feel as crazy then. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a huge undertaking, and just now I think tomorrow Lee's going to start getting some of the video and starting to actually edit it and put it together. It's going to take a little bit of time to get all that worked out.
Okay, yeah, no, that's great. Thanks.
Speaking of video, for those of us that are doing the verbal presentation of the winners, I have not done mine. It's going to be happening tomorrow morning. Are we using a particular background? Did you all dress to the nines? Like what are we going for? She didn't give me direction on that.
I think it was a ugly sweater or ugly Christmas sweater party.
All right. I got some of those.
He's going to tell you, yeah, you'll be the only one. Like, yeah, right.
That's fine.
Yeah, I've been kind of wondering the same thing, but I wasn't necessarily going to go to the nines, but I was going to dress up a little bit.
Okay,
be somewhat presentable.
From the top up.
Yeah, exactly. I can't guarantee anything below, the camera, but.
I was just going to go up against like brick fireplace, easy background. So that's, I'll if she doesn't like it, I'll do it again. Okay.
No, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I just got I just got her email like an hour and a half ago, so I hadn't even really considered it until right now.
And she mentioned the 4th, but I think if we have it to her by Monday, she'll be all right. Is that fair, Carter?
I think so. I mean, especially if it's close of business on the 4th. I mean, I think that Monday will be okay. Yeah, I would say do what you want. I mean, I didn't see your email, but it's 2020 and, you know, it's.
Right. Who knows? Thank you.
I think that's great. I did ask her earlier if I could have a reprieve and get it to her Monday morning, and she said that would be okay. So
Make it yours, own it. So
great. All right. Anything else? I don't believe we have any minutes to review, right?
there should be some.
I don't know that I saw. Maybe I did.
Yeah, they're in there.
You can tell that I have not read them then. Has everybody read the minutes?
Got your back. Yes.
I trust Chris.
Anybody
They were
else?
page long this time. It was easy.
Would you like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
Second. Oh, go ahead.
Who was that, Adam?
Yeah.
All right, second Adam. All in favor, we can just raise our hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, let me know. Otherwise, they are approved. Okay. If there's not anything else, I will go ahead and close this meeting. Any last comments? 3, 2, 1. All right, I appreciate everybody. Thanks for your time tonight. It's great. We made it through the second.
Everybody.
Take it easy.
Aye.
Yeah.